morning, everybody, and I'm happy to be the first, I'm sure, to wish you a happy second full day of spring. we made her. So I want to say a couple of things about this moment when the House will be reconvening the day after tomorrow. And after I say a few things about the situation in which this is taking place, Claudia Chender, our NDP spokesperson on natural resources and renewables, is going to speak, and then Susan LeBlanc, our party spokesperson on health and wellness, is going to speak following Claudia. So, the House takes back in the day after tomorrow in a situation and at a moment when every household in the province is facing intensifying, increasing pressure from the rapid recent rise in the cost of living. So I want to ask you to just take a half a second and in your imaginations come with me into an average Nova Scotia home. Let's say we land in the kitchen. So we open the fridge, there's a dozen eggs, price tag still on it, $4.99. A year ago, $2.99 for a dozen eggs. Let's go, we'll open the door to the cupboard, and there's a smaller than usual bag of flour there, 2.5 kilograms, but it's got the same price as 5 kilograms had exactly 12 months ago, $5.99. We go over here to the sideboard, there's a 3-pound bag of apples, that's $6.99. 3-pound bag of apples, $3.99, exactly a year ago. Well, that's in the kitchen. So we open the door and go down in the basement where there's your regular 900-liter oil tank. When the pandemic began, you could fill the tank from bone dry for $555. If we go to fill it from dry this morning, it will cost $1,178, more than double. Or we can just step outside and look at this not untypical Nova Scotia house as a whole. You know, not a house with a whole big bunch of renovations. The average three bedrooms, a normal Nova Scotian home in big parts of the province. Say 18 months ago, a home that would sell for around $250,000. We know that today its price is pushing closer towards $500,000. So people are in a moment when they are looking to their government to do everything it can to improve the security of their financial situations. And in this situation, this situation where you all know the numbers, where food's up 7% and shelter's up 6%, gas is up 25%, energy's up 24%. In this situation, the Conservative government yesterday lifted the ban on renovictions, which cannot but decrease the supply of available affordable apartments. And the government is poised a week from this Thursday coming to end the paid sick leave program, forcing people to go to work when they're unwell or have their check 1 day's pay short when their pay comes. Thereby, all this indicating that at some core level, the government's mind is elsewhere. The government's mind is at a remove or at a distance, out of touch from the intensifying financial pressures related to the escalation in the cost of living, which are having such an impact on many, many families in our province. Now, in the session upcoming, we in the NDP will, from a host of angles, be squarely addressing the escalating crisis of the cost of living. And this has many dimensions. One of the key ones we know is people's power bills. So Claudia is going to speak to the situation with Nova Scotia Power. Claudia.
Good morning. So as Gary took us on that tour, we didn't get to the household bills. And one of the most significant for many in this province is power bills. We know that people in Nova Scotia have some of the highest electricity bills in the country. And as we electrify, which is a good thing, we need to do that, it becomes more and more of an issue. But it means that more families who worry about being able to just afford heat in their homes when the temperatures dip, or who go without essentials to pay their power bill. At the same time, we receive mediocre service from an unreliable grid. I think that's uncontrovertible. We have people stocking up on batteries and food, chips, ahead of every single storm. They're rightfully worried that the power will go out because it often does. And what does that mean? It means Nova Scotians can't get ready for work. They can't get their kids ready for school. I'm sure this has happened to all of us in this room and beyond. And this often happens on a sunny day when the weather is just fine due to a previous power outage. Small businesses face continuous unplanned disruptions that can affect their bottom line. Nova Scotia Power's recent application for a 10% rate hike in this context is outrageous. It's unaffordable for Nova Scotians, especially given the second rate service that we receive. For too long, politicians and leaders have bounced the issue of power bills back and forth while refusing to challenge the core problems. And one of those core problems is a for-profit monopoly that charges some of the highest rates in the country, drags its feet on the transition to green energy. Nova Scotia Power has made more than $3 billion since it was privatized by the Conservative government in 1992. The CEO of parent company Emera made $8.28 million in compensation last year. Meanwhile, my office and MLA offices across the province see people weekly who are unable to afford power at all, who are deep in arrears, or who are cut off entirely. And to make matters worse, NSP shareholders are guaranteed a rate of return. They're guaranteed a high profit each year, and now they are asking to make that rate of return higher. Meanwhile, Nova Scotians are not even guaranteed that the lights will work or that the oven will turn on. This needs to stop. I think everyone would agree, and Nova Scotia Power needs to work for you. In the coming legislative session, our caucus will introduce new ideas to help make power bills more affordable, tie Nova Scotia Power's profits to their performance, and tackle the climate emergency. We'll introduce 5 pieces of legislation to address our energy utility and its governance, and today I'm just going to speak briefly about one of them. Nova Scotia Power is a publicly regulated utility, but many people feel as though that regulation carried out by the Utility and Review Board, the UARB, has not been in the full public interest. On Thursday, the day that the legislature opens, the New Democratic Party will introduce a bill to change the mandate of the UARB. Power bills are rising, and so is corporate and shareholder profit. Meanwhile, sustainability and equity aren't even part of the regulatory framework at all. Meager performance penalties don't make a dent, and the URB has refused to consider altering shareholder return. Our bill will allow the UARB to address energy poverty and to create a universal service program that would provide relief to tens of thousands of families in our province and to prevent people from having their power disconnected. It will also require the UARB to consider sustainability and the province's environmental targets when it's dealing with Nova Scotia Power's upcoming application. These 2 changes would begin to address some of the problems with the UARB and the lack of faith that Nova Scotians have in this process. Next week, we will introduce the other elements of our plan to help lower people's power bills, restrict Nova Scotia Power's profits, and tackle the climate emergency. So stay tuned for that, and in the meantime, I will hand it over to my colleague, Susan LeBlanc, who will speak a bit about healthcare.
Thanks, Claudia and Gary, and good morning, everyone. It would not be a pre-session press conference without a few words about healthcare. So, along with the issues of rising costs for people in Nova Scotia, the province is also waiting to hear from the government about its plan to fix healthcare. Tim Houston promised a lot on healthcare in the last 7 months, including his full plan about how he's going to fix it, which is due March 31st, which is only 9 days from now. He also promised to spend more than $400 million to improve healthcare in the upcoming budget. So to be sure, the NDP caucus will be using our time in the legislature coming up to make sure that the government delivers on its commitments. But I will be honest, I'm a little nervous about their plan because so far what we've seen from the Conservatives are tiny tweaks and broken promises. And nowhere is this more clear than on the issue of long-term care beds. Premier Houston promised to open 2,500 new beds during the election, but now his government says that just 500 beds is enough. Meanwhile, seniors are still stranded in hospital beds waiting for a place in a nursing home to live. We've also seen the government start exploring privatization in healthcare, including around the virtual healthcare and in a partnership with Sobeys that was issued without a tender. Earlier this week, the NDP caucus released a new data from a Foyer about the surgery wait times and the backlog. More than 27,000 people are waiting for surgeries. So we have many questions about this and we want answers. And this session, the NDP will continue to bring forward real fixes to healthcare. I am asking Premier Houston, through you, to steal our ideas and implement them now. So, for instance, allow physician assistants to practice in Nova Scotia. Open the full 2,500 long-term care beds that we were promised so we can free up hospital beds. Address the paramedic burnout through higher wages and lightening the workload. And create emergency mental health teams to ease the pressure on ambulances and emergency rooms. We will also have much more to say about the surgery backlog and emergency care later in the session. So that is all from me, and now we'd be happy to take your questions.